The boy does not freeze the way children freeze when they are caught doing something wrong. He freezes the way they freeze when the one person they cannot afford to see just walked around a corner. The grocery bags are still in his hands. One handle taped where it tore. Electrical tape, applied straight and careful. The way someone was taught to do it by a person who is no longer there to show them again. He does not move. He does not speak. He simply holds Richard's eyes with the specific stillness of a child who has rehearsed this moment and is now running the rehearsal. Richard stops walking. 6 seconds pass between them on Porter Lane. Then the boy says 6 words, quietly, with no drama in them at all, the words of someone who has thought about this specific outcome and prepared for it the way you prepare for something you hope will never happen, but know eventually will. "Sir, don't tell anyone what you saw." Richard follows him inside. The building has been condemned for 2 years. A notice is screwed to the doorframe. Yellow paper, city seal, a date from 19 months ago when someone filed and nobody followed up. The boy ducks under Richard's arm to push the door and does not look back to see if he is being followed. He already knows he is. Inside, morning light in long bars through the boarded windows, falling across the floor of what was once a community room, a folding table, a camp stove, the smell of something warm, canned soup maybe, heated this morning before Richard's car got a flat 2 blocks from here and changed the shape of his day. 4 men. The first 2 are on mattresses against the far wall. One sleeping, one watching Richard with the particular calibration of someone who has learned to assess a stranger in under 2 seconds. The second man at the table has a cup in both hands and a postal service jacket that has not been worn to work in a long time. He does not look up. The fourth man is in the corner. He is 70, maybe more, and when Richard steps through the door, he does something deliberate and unhurried. He reaches down, picks up a laminated photograph from the floor beside him, and presses it face down against his chest. Then he looks at Richard, not with fear, not with anger, with the expression of a man who has been waiting 5 years for a specific conversation and is measuring whether this is finally the right morning to have it. The boy sets the grocery bags down. He moves through the room without speaking, soup to the table, bread to the shelf, something wrapped in foil to the man with the postal jacket. He knows exactly who needs what first. He is known for 22 months. Richard stands in the door and does not move, because the old man in the corner is still holding the photograph face down against his chest, and he has not stopped looking at Richard once. A 9-year-old boy has been feeding 5 forgotten men in a condemned building on Porter Lane for 22 months, and the only person who has ever seen him do it is the man standing in the doorway right now. The oldest man in the room is holding a photograph face down against his chest and watching Richard Harmon with an expression that is not surprise. Richard does not understand yet why a stranger's face would carry recognition. He will, but not before the photograph is turned over, and not before he sees what is in the background of it. Richard knows the building in the photograph before he knows himself. The exterior of the Caldwell Street shelter, the brick facade, the hand-painted sign, the 3 steps up to the entrance. He knows it because his company demolished it. He knows it the way you know the face of someone you have not thought about in 5 years, but recognize in under 2 seconds when a photograph puts them in front of you again. He does not recognize the figure in the background until the 11th second, standing beside the city official, younger, thinner, a handshake already completing, the paperwork already signed, everything already done. Richard in the photograph looks like a man finishing a meeting efficiently. He looks exactly the way he has looked at the end of every meeting he has ever taken. Marcus hands him the photograph, without speaking. He has been holding it face down for 23 minutes. He gives it to Richard the way you give someone something they have been owed for a long time and have not come to collect. Richard leaves the building. He does not know what else to do, and so he does the thing he has done for 30 years when something needs to be understood before it can be handled. He goes back to his office and pulls the records. 23 people displaced. Caldwell Street. 5 years ago, 31st of March. A community shelter that had been operational for 14 years. The demolition was completed on schedule. The project came in 3% under budget. These are the only facts in Richard's file because these are the only facts Richard ever needed. He calls Victor. Victor picks up on the second ring and does not say hello. He says, "You found the building on Porter Lane." Not a question. 4 minutes. That is how long it took Richard to override Victor's request for a 60-day displacement review 5 years ago. Victor has not raised it since. He has not mentioned Caldwell once in 5 years of quarterly meetings and end-of-year reports and 10,000 decisions between then and now. He has been carrying 4 minutes for 5 years, and Richard never once noticed the wait. James Carter, Victor says. He was the volunteer coordinator. He spent 18 months after the demolition trying to place every displaced resident. He found housing for 19 of the 23. He could not find permanent placements for Marcus Webb and 4 others. He spent 3 more months trying. His heart gave out 22 months ago. He was 41. Richard does not speak. His son is 9, Victor says. He has been going back to finish what his father started. Richard is already standing when his phone buzzes. An alert from a city monitoring service his legal team maintains. A condemnation filing, 9 Porter Lane, submitted 47 minutes ago by Dale Simmons, City Code Enforcement. The filing is accompanied by a press conference scheduled for 8 tomorrow morning. Mandatory vacate order effective at dawn, not 48 hours. Dawn. Richard looks at the photograph. At his own face completing a handshake 5 years ago with complete and efficient indifference. He picks up his keys. A 9-year-old boy has been going back to finish what his father started, and his father died trying to fix what Richard Harmon signed away in 4 minutes. The condemnation order hits Porter Lane at dawn. The press conference is at 8, and Richard Harmon, whose face is in the background of a photograph that a 71-year-old man held face down for 5 years waiting for the right morning, is already in the elevator going down. Richard arrives at Porter Lane at 4 in the morning. The condemnation notice is still screwed to the door. He knocks anyway. Marcus answers like a man who hasn't slept, like a man who has been waiting. Without a word, he steps aside. Richard walks back into the building that became home for 19 months after his company demolished the one the residents had before. The others are already awake. The former postal worker sits at the folding table. The veteran stands by the window. The elderly man who still believes he'll return to Caldwell watches Richard carefully, as if deciding whether he deserves one final chance. In the corner, Noah sleeps beneath a jacket too large for him. He returned after school last night, just as he has done for months. Nobody ever asked him to come back. He simply did. Richard studies him for a long moment, then he takes out his phone. Between 4 and 6 in the morning, he makes 9 calls. City council members, a journalist investigating Simmons, his legal team. By sunrise, everything is moving. At 7:15, Richard is standing outside the building when Simmons arrives with a city crew and television cameras. Simmons stops the moment he sees him. Richard raises a photograph, not as a threat, as a question. The image shows Caldwell Street on its final day. A handshake in the foreground. Richard in the background, younger and unaware. But another figure stands on the steps. James Carter, volunteer coordinator, 41 years old, already understanding exactly what that handshake would cost the people inside. By 7:20, evidence of Simmons's consulting deal is sitting in a journalist's inbox. By 7:31, an emergency review filing reaches the city clerk, 4 minutes before Simmons's press conference. His contract is suspended. The condemnation order is halted. The photograph appears in newspapers and television reports the next morning. Richard does nothing to control the story. He lets the truth speak. 4 months later, the restoration is complete. Not a shelter. Permanent housing. A block from where Caldwell Street once stood. The community room Marcus ran for 14 years is rebuilt inside. Richard funds it quietly. Noah is there the day residents move in. He stands at the entrance holding a grocery bag with a carefully repaired handle. He doesn't understand every legal detail. He understands something simpler. The men are finally going home. Marcus is the last to enter. Before he does, he removes the old photograph from his jacket, folded now, worn from being handled too many times. He places it in Noah's hand. Then he walks inside. Across the street, Richard watches. He doesn't go in. This moment belongs to them. But he doesn't leave either. Some things cannot be undone. What can be done is everything that comes after. And everything that comes after begins with the decision not to drive past.